Newsmax TV.
All right, you are watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. Technically, the full name of this show is John Tobacco's Liquid Lunch, but I'm sitting in John Tobacco's chair, which means my usual role as co-host, sidekick, whatever I am, managing editor, has to be filled by somebody. And I'd like to think I leave pretty big shoes to fill. In fact, I'd like to say that I leave shoes that are so big they can only be filled by someone with boots. So we brought in somebody who has boots and has his boots on the ground and knows where all the bodies are buried, especially in the crypto game. Drew Taylor, the crypto cowboy, is going to join us as the co-host of the show for the next hour. Drew, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Frank, and let me tell you something. You're exactly right. I did wear my boots, and it's getting a little bit deep in here. Oh, boy. But, two things. I'm looking out back, and I parked my horse out there, and I don't see it. So I don't know if somebody stole my horse. And the other thing is, this is John Tobacco's Liquid Lunch. Where's the liquid lunch?
Yeah, you know what? When John is off, these guys, they think it's a day at the beach. So they've been very negligent in providing cocktail glasses for us. Hopefully, we'll remedy that before the hour's over. But very, very pleased that we're joined by Tom Kehoe. He's the CEO of Kingsbridge Strategies and a trade advisor to the U.S. Trade Representative and the USDA. Tom, it's great to have you back.
Thank you for having me back, Frank.
So, Tom, every day I feel like I see another article about economists predicting that a recession is around the corner. Now, of course, eventually they'll be right, because eventually there always is a recession. But from where you stand, how does the economy look overall?
The economy looks pretty good, Frank. I mean, we're in the job numbers are good. The manufacturing numbers are pretty good. Interest rates are at an all-time low. Unemployment, minority unemployment, unemployment across all levels has never been lower. So look, you know, it's pouring rain out behind us here in New York, for those of you who are not in New York. If we went out and jumped in a car, Frank said to me, you know, you better slow down, we may have an accident. Well, if I don't, guess what? We may have an accident. So you keep wishing you're going to have a recession. Sooner or later, sometime in the next 3, 4, 5 years, you may have one, but the indicators right now are very good. I don't think we're going to have a recession.
One area of the economy that does seem somewhat troubling is the amount of debt that's out there. We're seeing a lot of consumer debt, not just in things like credit cards, but the Wall Street Journal did a big story last weekend about how more and more people are financing these cars. Middle-class folks can't afford to buy the cars that they're buying. Mm-hmm. We're also seeing record levels of government debt. Eventually, does all that debt, government debt, personal debt, does all that debt mean something?
It's got to go someplace. I mean, when we were children, our parents didn't take on a lot of debt. They didn't believe in it. You know, the people that came out of World War II were immigrants from all over the world that came here. Much like in China, they don't borrow a lot of money. So this whole idea of credit cards and consumer debt is something really new in the past 20 or 30 years. And it's definitely something that our kids don't get in American schools, is how to handle all that, and it's definitely something that should be taught. So, look, the balloon's going to pop, just like the worldwide balloon eventually, and I think Americans have to learn how to manage their money better, and it's not something our children are taught in schools.
Hey, Tom, I got a question for you, and I tend to use cowboy logic in the things that I do for obvious reasons, but, you know, this president, unlike anything we've ever seen in history, it's like he's playing the game Wipeout, where he's trying to do things to move this country forward, but he's in this game getting barraged from everything else, and he's still managed to go in and achieve the things he has. How's this sustainable?
Well, look, he is an unconventional president. We never had in our lifetime, any of us here in the studio, Donald J. Trump came. I mean, everyone knew the name because of the family brand, but I mean, he catapulted, similar to the Democrats with his 20 candidates. He went from 0 to becoming president in a whole cycle. So I heard some of the conversation earlier with Frank on his previous guest, you know, about Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris. Trump did the same thing. He came out of nowhere. So he doesn't operate like a regular politician. He doesn't owe anything to the rank and file party. He identifies himself more as a moderate conservative, you know, Republican, but he could be a moderate conservative Dem for that matter. The world is adjusting to him and his negotiating style.
Tom,
he's got a very different style.
Let's talk China and trade. Where are we right now with the trade war with China? Is there any relief for the people that are being hurt by this, or are consumers that are getting ready to go into the holiday shopping season going to see higher prices on all those Chinese goods?
Well, the mid-level China dignitaries, the diplomats you would call it, came in the early part of the week, and they've been in negotiating sessions. The big guys come in today to start negotiating tomorrow. The vice premier, Liu, and the number 2 person in the central bank of China. There's a lot of talk. People are going to be hurt. People are going to be hurt. Look, China keeps devaluing the currency. So even though maybe there's going to be some tariffs, they've been beating Americans over the head for years on stuff shipped to China. I exported quite significantly into China and traveled extensively all over there. We paid enormous duties, U.S. goods getting into China. This is the first time, and even Chuck Schumer is in support of the president, it's the first time we've had a president willing to take on China. And I said this a couple of weeks ago. Steve Mnuchin, the Secretary of Treasury, and the president all the same day said, oh, China's a currency manipulator, and oh, the whole world went into a panic. Oh my God, you hear what Washington, D.C. said?
Well, it wasn't exactly breaking news that they're a currency manipulator, right?
But it was like everyone was at the casino and winning, so shh, keep your mouth shut.
Well, so let's say they come up with the framework of a deal here. Mm-hmm. How do we, or how does the administration trust that they'll adhere to any deal that they make?
Well, that's another whole. How do you get Iran to trust that they're? How do we trust Iran that they're going to adhere to a deal on not enriching uranium? It's the same. There's going to have to be some safeguards put into place, but Trump is going after them. Look at what's happened. And I said this to you, I think, one other time recently. What's happening in Hong Kong now is, I think this whole deal could pivot on it. I think everyone kind of thought China would deal with Hong Kong, but they haven't been able to. And what happened this week with the NBA, I think, is showing the younger generation of Americans that this is what you get with an authoritarian type of a dictator. This is what socialism will bring. This is what communism will bring to this country, where you don't have the freedom of expression or you can't choose. Look, China's a horrible dictatorship. They've got, the Muslim generation, the Muslims, the Uyghurs, the Uyghurs, they put them in prison and concentration camps. The last time I was there, we were hoping to get up on a rooftop bar to be able to get internet.
They are a horrible dictatorship that violates human rights, but they're also a country that until recently was our biggest trading partner and a country that we borrow the most money from.
Then they still are.
We're sort of in bed with some bad people. Given that fact, what kind of effect is this trade war going to have on the American economy?
I think eventually it'll be a win for the American economy. I think we're going to have more of a level playing field. I think the ag community is going to be a big beneficiary. And I think originally I think both sides were looking for a Grand Slam home run and winning the World Series at the same time. I don't think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see, and I said this several months ago, some small wins, and we'll move towards bigger wins. We're not going to get regime change. They're not going to stop. They're going to not change their hand and become a democracy tomorrow. This is not who they are. You can't take the spots off the leopard. So.
I think when Trump came in and there was a lot of hoopla over him and Xi and the things that they did, and I think that we actually thought, in my opinion, I felt we'd see better than what we saw in those relations. But I think the Chinese have become one of the Democrats' biggest weapons because they've abandoned, in my opinion, the Democratic Party has abandoned all the tenements that make Americans Americans, and so they have, if they can go in there and get Trump out of there. I think it's one of the biggest secret weapons that the Chinese have against America.
I think the Democratic Party now, and you were talking about it before, Frank, it's win at all costs, fire every bomb and weapon that you have. If there's bloodletting and blood in the water, it doesn't matter. They'd like to undo the election, but if they can't undo it, they want to make sure that Trump doesn't win the second time around. And you may see Hillary come in, you may see Michelle Obama come in. It's way too early to see who's going to be the Democratic nominee. I mean, whoever thought this would happen to Biden now? He's done.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think they want, Wall Street doesn't want, China doesn't want Elizabeth Warren.
Right.
She's the biggest environmentalist and Green Party advocate that is in the leader and the head of the pack, so to speak. China is the single biggest offending nation in the Paris Accord, and that nobody wants to talk about that either. Maybe all of the people that are swinging to the left should just, after they hear my voice, they stop buying anything made in China. If they'll stop buying, starve China out, maybe they'll start complying, but they don't want to comply.
All right, we want you to comply. As we take a break, want you to stay tuned because next, Ronica Cleary is here. There is nobody that knows politics inside the Beltway better than Ronica. Tom, thanks so much for joining us. The Crypto Cowboy will stick around as well. Take a cue from him and stick around. This is Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm Frank Murray.